Why did it zoom out? All right. So today we're going over slope formula. We've already gone over slope. We can find slope from a graph. We can find slope from 2 points. This time, I'm giving you guys this right here, something that's going to look like this. Y is equal to 3x minus 2. This is in the slope-intercept form. Y'all don't know what any of this means yet, but we'll figure that out, okay? So we've been dealing with what on graphs?
Slope.
Slope. Now that slope comes from what figure? What shape? So we use triangles to find the slope of that straight line, okay? So slope comes from straight lines. So this equation, this is called algebraic form, okay? Algebraic form has symbols, numbers, an equal sign, a subtraction sign. We're going to take this algebraic form and we're going to make a table of it. So we're going to represent this as a table. And then once we make a table, we will be able to put it in a graphical form, or a graph. And what should we end up with over here? What are we dealing with?
Slope.
Slope, which comes from
Straight lines.
Straight lines, okay? So slope has to only deal with lines. This right here represents a line, and that will make more sense at the end of this class, okay? So you guys have made tables before. Y'all have done this in 7th grade. Y'all should have done them maybe a little bit in 6th grade. All right, we have an x column. We have the equation in this column. We have y, and then right here is where we're going to put them together and make a coordinate, okay? So what we get to do, my favorite part, is we get to decide what we want x to be, okay? We just get to choose any random numbers. Now, if you're like me, though, you're lazy, and you want small numbers, okay? I want simple things I can calculate, okay? So what are like some super small numbers we can plug in?
2.
1, 2, and my personal favorite,
4.
5.
what gets rid of stuff?
0.
0. I love 0. 0 is my favorite thing to plug in. So we can do 0, 1, and 2. Could we do 3? Could we do 4? Could we do negative 1? Yes.
We can do anything.
I don't care. We just want to choose small numbers, okay? Are y'all good with 0, 1, 2?
Yes.
Okay? We only need 3 numbers because there's only 3 boxes under this x. So we're going to do 0, we're going to do 1, and we're going to do 2. We get to choose that, okay? We get to choose that. And I always like 0 because 0 gets rid of things. Okay? You're all good with that? Trevor? Okay. In this next column, what we're going to do, so I'm going to ignore those second x values. This second column, we have y is equal to 3x minus 2. This is our equation, but we decided we want to use what as x? 0. So we are going to rewrite this, except instead of writing x, I'm going to write 0 in its place. So we're going to do y equals 3. What is this 3 doing with the x?
Multiplying.
Multiplying. So 3 times, instead of x, we're going to use 0. We're just substituting that in. Minus 2. Okay? So all I did was replace x with 0 because we decided we wanted to use 0 as an x value. And then we can just calculate this. Y is going to be equal to whatever this thing is. Okay? We can use our order of operations. You can use your calculator. I don't care. 3 times 0 is 0. So I like 0. Minus 2 gives us negative 2. Yeah, in just a few minutes. We'll do this first. So whenever we plug in 0 for x, we get negative 2 for y. And this last column, we're going to put them together. So you see we have parentheses, we have a comma, and right here we're going to put the x value first. What was x? 0. And we got what for y? Negative 2. So our coordinate is 0, negative 2. Okay. 0, negative 2. Y'all okay with what we just did? We're going to practice it again. All right. Our next one, we have 1 for x. So we're going to do the same thing here, but instead of plugging in 0, we're going to plug 1 in. So y is equal to 3 times 1 minus 2. Okay, so all we're doing is plugging in our values that we chose for x in place of x. And then we'll calculate. Again, you can plug this in your calculator. You can do this in your head. 3 times 1 is
3.
3 minus 2 is 1. So when I plug 1 in for x, what do we get for y? 1. So our coordinate is going to be 1, comma 1. Okay, good. Okay, and then 2. Y equals 3 times 2, good, minus 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 minus 2 is 4. And so our coordinate here will be 2, comma 4. Okay. Any questions about what I've done in this table? Does it matter what we choose for x?
No.
No, we just want to choose what type of numbers. Small numbers. Because, guys, if we're going to graph it, we need small numbers. Because we don't want to have a graph with 9,000 on it. Okay? Now, we have 3 coordinates. And what can we do with these 3 coordinates? We can graph them, okay? I know some of us are still struggling with plotting points. So this first one is 0, negative 2. So we always start at 0, 0. X is 0. X is left or right. So am I going to go left or right any? No, because it's 0. I'm going to say right here.
Right down the negative.
And then y is negative 2. Y is up and down. So we're going to go straight down to negative 2. And there's going to be one of our points. Okay, x, y. X is side to side. Y is up and down. Now back to the middle. Our next point is 1, comma 1. So our first number is 1. That is x. So I'm going to go which direction? 1 to the right. And our second 1 is the y value, so we're going to go up. Okay, remember we've got to make both movements before we put a point on our graph. Okay, this is 1 point together, not 2 individual points. All right, back to the center. Our next point is 2, 4. That 2 is x, so I'm going to go which way? Right 2 on the x-axis. The y is 4, so we're going to go up 4 on the y-axis. I have 3 points on my graph, and what is the whole purpose of this?
Slope.
But slope has to deal with what? Lines, okay? Lines are the most important thing here. Lines have slopes, okay? That's where slope comes from. Now, when we make a line, we want to make sure we go through the points, and we don't just stop at them. Every year, I have people make their lines like this. Here's my line. That's not a line, okay? Make sure you guys go past the points, and what goes at the end of lines? Arrows. Again, go past the points. We're not just... No, you didn't. You just connected the 3 dots and stopped. We want to go past those dots.
See, I did. Look, now I did.
Oh, now you did it. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Okay. Are we good?
I'm still confused.
Okay. Monday, we are going to work with more tables and graphs. Okay. So Monday, we're going to make more tables and more graphs like this. Let's go on to the next part of our notes. It says, what is slope-intercept form of a linear equation? Well, this right here, y equals 3x minus 2, is slope-intercept form. This is in slope-intercept form. This 3 means something, this minus 2 means something. And we're going to figure out what that means. So y is equal to mx plus b. Boys, okay? M, we already know m represents the what? Slope. We talked about that on Monday and yesterday and a little bit Wednesday. So m is slope. Okay? Whatever number is attached to the x is the slope. Okay? So if it's mx, they're multiplying together, it's going to be side by side, that's the slope. So right here in the first one, y equals 3x minus 2. Which of these is the slope? The 3. It's just the 3, just that number. Because that 3 is attached to the x. So our slope, I'm going to write slope, is equal to 3. Because it's the number that's always attached to the x. Y is by itself. It's equal to 3x. Slope is 3. Now there's a number in the back here, and there's a plus b back here. So if y'all thought m was weird for slope, just wait. B represents this thing called the y-intercept. The y-intercept. Where have you heard something that sounds similar to intercept before? Football. Interceptions, okay? Now, when there is an interception, there is a player from the other team that catches the football. Is it good? No, unless you are that other team. All right, so if it's your team, then you're not. If they got it, then you're good, or you're happy about it. So what it means is that's where, when an interception happens, boys, I know y'all are super excited about football right now.
Okay. Shut up.
Hey, I don't want to hear. Okay. When we have an interception in football, that's where that ball and that football player meet. Okay? That football player catches the ball. It's where they meet. It's where they cross paths. Okay? So when we have a y-intercept, it is where our line crosses paths, runs into the, well, if it's the y-intercept, it's going to cross the y-axis. Very good. So the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, so the y-intercept is where our line's going to cross the y-axis. And that's going to come in handy here in a little bit when we try graphing that way. Okay, y'all have this down? You don't have this down, so we need to write it down.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay?
See, I got it.
So over here in this equation, we have y equals 3x minus 2. That minus 2 is the what? The y-intercept. It's what's in the back of the equation. Okay, so I'm going to write over here y-intercept, and I'm just going to do y-int is equal to what number? But what signs with that 2? A negative 2. Okay? So based off of this equation, I can see the slope is 3 because it's attached to the x. The y-intercept is negative 2 because it's in the back by itself. It's not attached to the x. And we have y by itself, just like it's supposed to be. Okay? So notice, which two things have numbers? Is it y and x or m and b? So right here in this equation, do we have numbers plugged in for y and x?
Oh, it's M and B.
M and B already have numbers in place. So whenever we have an equation in slope-intercept form, there's always going to be a number in place of m, and there's always going to be a number in place of b. Y and x are going to stay y and x, except when we do our tables, okay? So let's look at our graph and let's see how this works. Okay? It says our slope is 3. We know how to calculate slope. So let's look at our graph. Can we calculate the slope of our graph? I mean, I'm pretty sure I taught you this already, so that would be great if you could. If I want to find the slope of this graph, what do I need to make? Okay, I want to make a triangle. I'm going to get a colored pencil. We need 2 points. There are 3 points here. Doesn't matter which 2 we use. No, which 2 would you like to use?
The top one and the bottom.
The top one and the bottom one, these 2? Okay. Are y'all okay if I go over and up? Or do y'all want me to go up and over? Y'all care? Don't care. Okay, some people care. So I'm going to go over and then up. And I'm going to make this right triangle here. Well, how many boxes does it go over? 2. And how many does it go up?
6.
6. I know they're a little faint. Okay. So our slope, or m, or rise over run, is going to be what over what? Careful, rise over run.
6 over 2.
6 over 2. And that simplifies to 6 divided by 2 is 3. Y'all do know 6 divided by 2 is 3, right?
No, I really didn't know that.
I heard a 4 somewhere in there. Got a little concerned.
To be honest, I didn't know that.
All right, 6 divided by 2 is 3. So our slope is 3. M is 3. And didn't we say over here, Hey, there's a 3 in front of the x, so that's our slope. Okay, now let's see how our y-intercept works. It tells us our y-intercept is -2. So let's look at our graph. To find our y-intercept on our graph, we need to look at the y-axis. And I want to see where my y-axis and my line cross. So do y'all see where these two lines meet right here?
Yes.
Okay, this line meets with this line right here. And what is that number? -2. And what did we say our y-intercept was? -2. Okay. So that shows us how our line matches this equation. This equation tells us both our slope and our y-intercept. Okay. We'll work with that some more here in a second. Okay. So in our next little section, we want to get this information, and we want to plug it into slope-intercept form. So we want to plug it into y equals mx plus b. So what did I say is always going to stay the same? Y and x. Okay? So we're going to start every single time the same way. Y equals. Every single time it's y equals. After y equals, we have m. Well, what number does it tell us m is equal to? 7. So what can I replace m with? 7. Y is equal to 7. And it has to be attached to what? X. So y equals 7x. Every year I have people forget this x. Do not forget it. Okay? It has to be slope with an x. And then our formula, or form, says plus, so we can do our plus sign. And b is -3. So we have plus a -3. Okay, so all I did was replace m with 7 and b with -3. Can I simplify this part right here? What can I write? Instead of doing a plus and a minus, a plus and a negative, we can write y is equal to 7x what 3? -3. When we add a negative, we are taking away, so that is 7x minus 3. Okay, that way we don't have to have double signs. Y'all know I hate having those two signs side by side. Okay? Because it looks weird and it confuses people. Y'all would hate if I gave this to you every time. Alright, example 2. Same thing. What are we always going to start with? Y equals. And then m comes next. But we can put what in place of m? 3/4. And what has to be attached to that 3/4? That x. And we have a plus sign. And b is 6. So plus 6. There's nothing to simplify there, because we don't have any double signs. But we have it in y equals a number x plus a number. Mx plus b. Okay, good. Questions? We're just plugging in things. Okay, example 3. What am I always going to start with? Y equals. What am I going to put in place of m? -2, and it has to be attached to x. Now again, slope does not include that x. The slope is just the number. Just the number. And then we would do plus what? 0. Now guys, does plus 0 change anything about our equation? No. So you know what I'm not going to write? Plus 0. So y is equal to -2x. There's nothing in the back, which means that's a 0. Okay.
What if he was hiding?
Well, he is hiding because I didn't write him, but it's still a 0.
What if he was lost?
Too bad. Example 4. Again, we start with y equals, and I'm gonna plug this in, and then we'll simplify it. Okay. Slope is 0. Must be attached to x, and we do plus 5. Okay. We can simplify this. What is 0 times x? 0. And what's 0 plus 5? So y is equal to 5. So if there is no x in our final equation, or the equation it gives us, there are 0 x's. so the slope is 0. So this one would be our final one. I don't know. I thought you said my name. Okay. Okay. I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you guys today, but we will be practicing a lot on Monday and Tuesday, okay? All right. Yeah, you're totally, I promise y'all will have plenty of time. All right. Last part of our notes. So the very first part we graphed by making a table. On this part, we are going to graph just by simply using our equation, okay? This is what your homework is going to look very similar to, okay? So this says y is equal to 1/2 x plus 2. Is this in slope-intercept form?
Yes.
Yes, because y, it's by itself. We have a number attached to x, and we have this number here in the back. So before we can graph this, we've got to identify our slope and our y-intercept. So our slope is always attached to which one? X. What's attached to the x? 1/2. So m is equal to 1/2. Remember, m is slope. Those are the same thing. B represents what?
2.
It is 2, but it is the y-intercept. So B is 2. It's the y-intercept. It is a positive 2 because it says plus 2. So our first step is just looking at this equation, which is what you're going to do tonight for your homework. You're going to have equations. You're going to identify the slope, and you're going to identify the y-intercept.
Is that a y or 1/2?
A 1/2. Sorry, it's slanty. Do I need to put it right side up? 1/2. Okay? Now, in order to graph from this form, instead of making a table, okay, this is the way I like to graph because do we want to have to make one of these every single time? No. This is the quicker way to graph, okay, but this is the one that's a little bit trickier for people. Our first step is to graph the y-intercept as our first point. Now, we talked about the y-intercept is going to be where? On the y-axis. Let's make a little note of that. On the y-axis. Okay? On the y-axis. So if B, or the y-intercept, is 2, where is our first point going to go? On the right side? Where's the y-axis?
Oh, no, it's not on the right side. It's
Which one of these is the y-axis? This one or this one? The vertical one, the up and down one. So this is our y-axis. If we are crossing the y-axis at 2, you're completely right. We're going to go up to this 2, and we're just going to put a point directly on the y-axis. Are y'all okay with that? Okay. So our y-intercept is 2, B is 2, so we're going to go up to 2 on the y-axis. Then we're going to use the slope from the y-intercept to plot our next point. So guys, slope is a movement. Slope is how our line moves. Our line has to go through this point here. So we want to move from this point here. So if our slope is equal to 1/2, 1 represents the what? What over what? Rise over run. So if the rise is 1, which direction are we going to move? The rise is 1, that is up. If 2 is the run is side to side, so 2 is going to be to the right. Okay, when it's positive, it's right. So instead of going back to 0, 0, slope is in a point. I have people every year trying to plot it as a point. This is not a point. It's a way we move. We have to start at the y-intercept because we know our line will go through our y-intercept. Just like when you find your slope on a line, you use 2 points. When we're making a line, we have to use a point and our slope. So from this point, we're going to move up how many boxes?
1.
Up 1 box, and we're going to move right 2 boxes. And when we have gone up 1 and right 2, that is where our another point's going to be on our graph.
Good morning.
You have to stay awake, or else you're not going to know what's going on. Okay? So we have to go up and plot our 2 for our y-intercept. Then we use our slope from our y-intercept. You always start at your y-intercept. So up 1 over 2. Okay? You only need 2 points to make a line. So therefore, we can connect our 2 points. Again, don't make a line like this. This will make me mad. That is not a line. That is a line segment. I don't like it. Don't do it. Okay? You want to go past the points. And lines go on forever, so what can I put at the end? Arrows. Okay? We are going to practice this a lot on Monday, and on Tuesday, and on Wednesday, and on Thursday.
What about Friday?
On Friday, we're going to look at something a little bit different. Okay? So just beware. We are going to practice this a lot.
When do we get a break?